In the early 1990s, outside of the small town of Elkhorn, Wisconsin, strange sightings were being reported. Sightings of a large, shaggy-haired creature, often spotted lurking on the edges of the cornfield, or perhaps suddenly illuminated in your headlights as you drive along an isolated, dark stretch of rural road. Picture it, massive, with long, dark, shaggy fur, a long snout, pointed ears, and muscular arms. At first glance, it might be mistaken for a large dog, a bear, even a wolf. But then it slowly rises from all fours to stand upright on its hind legs, human-like, and return your stare with a penetrating gaze of its own. The beast knows you have spotted it, and it doesn't like that. Bray Road bears the name of the Bray family who first settled to farm that land, and today it remains a rural back road outside of Elkhorn, cutting through the farmlands between the rural town of Elkhorn and the other small communities of southern Walworth County, Wisconsin. Elkhorn is surrounded by farmland, open fields, with several lake resort towns nearby. To the north begins the glacial landscapes of the Kettle Moraine Forest, with their ancient secrets. But Elkhorn was quiet for the most part, until tales began to spread like wildfire through the small community. Tales of a large, humanoid creature that could only be described by locals as a werewolf. The first reported sighting was recorded by a local reporter in 1991. Lori Andreezy had been driving home after working the closing shift at her restaurant job in Elkhorn. It was around 2 a.m. on an empty stretch of Bray Road when she spotted a large, dark mass crouching near the roadside, covered in dark, brown-black fur, and she noted that it was perhaps the size and weight of an average man. Its back was to her, she described, which made its tall, pointed ears even more noticeable. The pointed ears, like a wolf's. The other notable feature, Andreezy said, was that unlike a dog or a wolf, this creature had human legs. It was kneeling, Lori remembered. Its elbows were out, and its claws were facing out, so I knew it had claws. I remember the long claws. The claws held what looked like roadkill, perhaps the creature's midnight snack. Its eyes reflected in the headlights of her car as it turned to stare as she drove past. But perhaps what shocked her most was that the creature did not flee or look away from the beams, but instead turned its head, its eyes following her as she slowly drove past. It was only later, when she came across an illustration of a werewolf in a library book, that she could even begin to fathom what she had seen that night. Halloween night, 1991. Doris Gibson was driving home through the fog along Bray Road when something rolled under her front tire, lifting it off the ground. She pulled over, thinking perhaps she had hit an animal, but when she turned to look behind her, the road was empty. Slowly, she stepped out of her car and circled behind it. That's when she saw it, or it saw her. "Here comes this thing," she would later describe, "just running up at me. It was no dog. It was bigger than me." She turned and ran back to her car, barely making it inside before the creature closed on her and sped away. When she got home, that was when she found the long, raking claw marks on the bumper of her car. Like Lori, what stood out most to Doris was that whatever she had encountered, It seemed to chase her on 2 legs, not 4. I could see its chest heaving as it ran toward me, she recalled. I've never seen a human run like that. In one similar sighting, a group of children aged 10 to 11 were walking home after playing in a nearby creek just outside of town. That was when one of the girls noticed what she thought was just an unusually large dog lurking across the cornfield at the edge of the woods. That is, until it stood up on 2 legs. It had brown-colored fur with silver running through it, one the girl described, and its face was shaped like a coyote, but the back legs were shaped differently. When it stood up, they looked bigger than a dog's or a coyote's, like they could stand and jump. It was looking at me. But sightings of this creature perhaps stretch back even farther than this. One of the earliest possible sightings dates all the way back to 1936. A man was working as a security guard at the nearby Catholic convent of St. Coletta, and he had kept this story to himself until stories of the beast hit the newspapers. Twice, while he was patrolling the grounds, he came across a large, unidentified creature perched atop an old Native American burial mound, and it was raking at the earth with its long claws. That first night, it turned and fled as soon as he approached. When the man returned the next night, he came face to face with the beast. He estimated it to be close to 6 feet tall. He also described the beast as being covered in black or brown, shaggy fur, and said that it gave off a terrible odor and had eyes that looked right into him. He even recalled that the creature seemed to growl something at him in a semi-human voice, and he was extremely unnerved by its eye contact. Thankfully, the creature again decided to turn and leave, instead of lunging at him, as it had the women and children who later encountered it in the 90s. Its sudden display of an upright human stance, its aggressive, almost intelligent stare. Reported sightings of this mysterious creature go on, stretching far back in history and spanning several states in the Midwest. But these are the 2 traits which seem to be most common to the sightings of the beast of Bray Road, and what scares those who encounter it the most. Now, I actually grew up in the town of Elkhorn when I was small. We lived there for around 4 years. So I really wanted to sit down and tell this story to you all as a local spooky legend. There are several theories as to what this creature called the Beast of Bray Road could possibly be. And while both of the women who first reported these sightings or encounters stated that they did not actually think that they had seen a werewolf, nor did the local reporter, Linda Godfrey, who covered the story at the time. This angle was mostly played out to make for an interesting newspaper story in an otherwise small, sleepy, slow news town. However, it is noteworthy that in her books about the creature and its strange phenomena surrounding it, she does mention that a local animal control officer at the time did keep a folder in his desk of a collection of similar strange sightings, which he playfully labeled Werewolf File. Lori Andreezy stated that she believed that the beast was something demonic or satanic. I don't really believe in werewolves per se, she said, but I believe something could be, well, conjured up. Doris Gibson was also unwilling to call what she saw a werewolf, instead choosing to believe it was some malformed or malnourished animal. Perhaps even some strange hybrid. But if not a werewolf, then what is it? Most seem to think that the Beast of Bray Road is simply a mangy bear, perhaps a large dog or wolf, or even a strange hybrid between the two. But the distinct feature of the Beast of Bray Road is that its hind legs bend outward at the knee, the way humans would, instead of back as dogs or cats do, allowing it to stand, jump, and run much faster and higher than any animal would seem to be able to, especially on two legs. The other interesting thing is that most of these sightings did not note seeing a tail. Now, the missing tail and the upright posture could point to a bear. Bears are a rare sight in southern Wisconsin, but not impossible, and they are known to sometimes stand on their hind legs as well as have long claws. But a distinct feature of the beast of Bray Road are its tall, pointed ears, not short and round like a bear's. They're often compared to a coyote's or a German shepherd's, which I think is what gives it the werewolf label. And all of these sightings had taken place over the winter, a time when most bears would normally be hibernating. Now, the lack of a tail and the strong, terrible odor often reported in association with beast sightings could point to a cryptid or strange mythological creature like a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch. However, Sasquatch are also not known to have pointed ears or a long dog-like snout like the beast has. For this reason, some take the hybrid theory even further, postulating that the beast of Bray Road could be a cryptid. A cryptid is a term for an animal or creature, sometimes, but not always, said to be supernatural in its origins or its traits, but which is commonly believed in folklore to exist, but has not been scientifically proven, such as... Now, the word cryptid comes from cryptozoology, which comes from the Greek kryptos, which means hidden. And so it's a term for these hidden, secret creatures like Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster. Some believe that the beast may be such a creature, perhaps the remnant, perhaps like the Loch Ness Monster, some leftover surviving remnant of an Ice Age creature long thought to be extinct. We do have records and examples of ancient Paleolithic prehistoric creatures, one being named by Native Americans the shaggy-haired, or carries off dogs, for its habit of sneaking into the camps at night and carrying off small animals. The shaggy-haired does resemble some strange wolf-hyena hybrid, with black-brown fur and tall, stocky front legs and shoulders which slope down to shorter, smaller hind legs. This might seem to counteract the description of the beast's powerful human back legs, but according to author Linda Godfrey, from certain angles, it could give the creature the appearance of crouching or having larger front legs or broader chest, as Indrizi described. Another ancient extinct creature is Amphision, or dog of doubtful origin, a prehistoric mammal the size of a bear, but appearing more like a bear-dog hybrid. It's theorized that a creature called the Wahila by First Nations tribes of the area, and still rumored to be spotted in modern times, could be responsible for Beast of Bray Road sightings. Now, delving into even more supernatural theories. There are some who think that the beast could be a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch. Back in the 70s, sightings had been reported in a nearby community of a hairy, 7-foot-tall creature in the Kettle Moraine Forest, known only as the Bluff Man. like the beast named for the area it was most frequently spotted near. But all of the beast sightings, as I said, include the distinctive wolf or coyote-like head, which the Sasquatch, or skunk ape as it's sometimes called, does not have. There are also many similar tales of what is known as the Michigan or the Indigenous Dogman. Many believe that the beast of Bray Road is a close cousin to this Midwest cryptid. Most trace the Dogman's origins back to stories from the old logging camps, when men working in the camps were reported not only seeing, but even being attacked by a half-man, half-dog creature that, most notably, walked around upright on two legs. One tale in particular, from a logger named Robert Fortney, reported being attacked by a pack of wild dogs that he had to fend off with his gun. The last one to remain standing did just that. He claimed it did not turn and run, but instead stood on its hind legs and stared at him with slanted, evil eyes and the hint of a grin. It is notable that this sighting was reported in 1938, only 2 years after the first sighting of the beast on the burial mound in the Wisconsin churchyard. Others link the Dogman to similar accounts from Indigenous legends, perhaps as a native or elemental spirit of the land, perhaps a guardian of the land, turned angry or restless over time. It may even, as Andrizi thought, be some demonic or primordial elemental being, conjured by and beholden to no man. Now, in her book, Godfrey also mentions legends from the Ojibwe as well as other First Nations tribes of the North and Michigan, home of the Dogman. There are creatures referred to as bear walkers, which are very similar to the skinwalkers of the Southwest. Much like skinwalkers, they are said to be humans with an ability to transform into other animals, in this case a bear. And like many superstitions surrounding similar practitioners of magical arts like witches and sorcerers, they were sometimes said to be able to cause sickness in others through malicious magic. Another similar creature found in the northern reaches is the Wendigo. Now, this is a creature from the First Nations of the Northeast and the Plains. They are also described as humanoid beings, or humans possessed by a malevolent spirit, which slowly corrupts the person, driving them to commit heinous, terrible acts, or taboo acts outside of the acceptable cultural norms. The Wendigo is associated with themes of winter, survival, and famine, and it's often characterized by its insatiable hunger or greed. If taken by the Wendigo, the coldness, hunger, and anger of the spirit will consume the person until they are driven to violence and cannibalism. However, I feel the Wendigo can be ruled out as a possible origin for the beast of Bray Road. While some modern-day depictions may give it an animal head, all of the indigenous accounts of the Wendigo's description do not match with the appearance, the werewolf-like appearance of the beast. However, we do have the Skinwalker. Much like the Bear Walker, the Skinwalker is a legend out of the Navajo tribes of the Southwest, and they are also said to be either a sorcerer or a person with supernatural abilities who is corrupted into a malicious entity through greed, lust for power, or like the Wendigo, just a violating of or turning away from the cultural norms. Now, they are said to effect their transformation by using the skins or pelts of animals, hence the name, enabling them to take on that animal's form, yet still maintain a human intelligence or awareness. Much like the beast of Bray Road, a common feature reported in in those who encounter a skinwalker are its piercing, unnerving, and intelligent stare. And according to some tales, that is how you are able to tell a regular animal from a skinwalker, are its still human eyes. And while no one seems to think that the beast is really a werewolf in the traditional sense, skin changing does feature as a theme in some of the Norse and Teutonic sagas, where humans transform using wolf skins. So, what is the beast of Bray Road? Mangy bear? Bigfoot? A supernatural man-wolf hybrid? Perhaps a strange intermingling of the werewolf tales of the Black Forests of Germany and France, carried overseas by early settlers, where it met the tales of the indigenous dogma and other native legends, to give birth to an entirely unique American folk tale. But if you do find yourself driving along the lonely back roads of Wisconsin one cold winter night, keep your eyes on the road.